Hello everyone. Today we will do our balance sheet format. We are already thorough with the format of our income statement. Income statement has two sections in it. The first section is called the trading section, which gives us the gross profit, a profit exclusively earned due to buying and selling. The next section is the profit and loss account, which tells us what is our net profit and what is either we have a profit or we have losses. We practiced quite a few sums. Along with that, we also learned that the inventory which is there in the trial balance, it is always which inventory? It is always the opening inventory. And the inventory that appears as an adjustment, okay, it is always the closing inventory. Apart from that, we also learned the two effects of the closing inventory would be that these inventory does not form a part of cost of those goods that we have sold. That is why such inventory should be removed from the cost of sales. The second effect of closing inventory is that this inventory belongs to us. So it forms a part of the current assets and it will be sold next year. Next year, this would appear in the trial balance as opening inventory. This we had studied up till now. We also studied that in the trial balance, the drawings, goods for own use that appears, it has only one effect and it will be adjusted in the balance sheet. It will be deducted from capital in the balance sheet and it is not the goods for own use which is adjusted in cost of sales. Goods for own use that is adjusted in cost of sales is always given in the adjustments. Now, we would proceed with the format of our balance sheet. Balance sheet is the statement of financial position which is always given as at a particular date. As at a particular date, or statement of financial position as at. This means that the balance sheet is a positional statement. Balance sheet is a positional statement and it is valid only for one day. Okay, so this balance sheet or the statement of financial position is prepared on the last date. Our balance sheet always starts with our non-current assets. So we have three columns in the balance sheet. The first column would be the cost of the non-current asset. Second column would be the depreciation to date. That means up to date, whatever depreciation we charge on the non-current asset. And the third column would be the net book value, which is the column that we consider when we try to show that our balance sheet is tallying, when we try to show that our total assets is equal to total liabilities. Okay, so we have our non-current assets. Whatever non-current assets you have, supposingly your non-current assets is premises, so the cost will be written in the cost column. Depreciation to date will be written in the depreciation column. Always remember that cost minus depreciation, cost minus depreciation gives you the net book value. Which depreciation? Not the depreciation of the year. Okay, it is not the depreciation of the year, but it is the depreciation to date. That means the total depreciation the total depreciation charged up to now is subtracted from the cost to arrive at the net book value. Okay, so cost minus depreciation gives you the net book value. Similarly, your non-current assets are those assets which last for more than 1 year in your business. So your machinery will be there. Machinery, the cost minus the depreciation to date will give you the net book value. Take more examples of non-current assets. We are taking fixtures and fittings. Cost minus depreciation to date will give you net book value. Office equipment's cost minus depreciation to date will give you net book value. Okay, now you do the total of the cost, whatever is there, you record it. You do the total of the depreciations. It is called provision for depreciation. That means all the totals of the depreciation goes into an account which is provision for depreciation account. And the total cost minus total depreciation to date should give you the net book value of the assets which lies with you on that date. Here we will close our two columns of the costs and depreciation to date. And this will be the column that we will carry forward. This will be the column that we are going to carry forward. In your non-current assets, when you add your current assets, you will get your total assets. And always remember that in your balance sheet, your total assets is always equal to your total liabilities. In the balance sheet, the total assets is always equal to your total liabilities. So you will add your current assets. In your current assets, the first thing that always comes is the closing inventory, which is found in adjustments. Always remember the closing inventory will be always found in the adjustments, and the closing inventory will have two effects. Anything that is found in the adjustments has two effects. What are the two effects of closing inventory? First, it is an asset, so it will be shown in the current assets. Second, it is net inventory which is unsold, which does not give you gross profit. So you less it from your cost of sales. Okay. So in your current assets, you will have closing inventory. I'm writing it in the second column. When you close this column, that means you're closing the column of cost and depreciation to date. And from here again, your amount column continues. Okay. So the closing inventory. Next, you will write the trade receivables and you will adjust it for the new bad debts that you have faced after closing the books and the new provisions that you think of creating when you close the books. So trade receivables adjusted with the new bad debts and new provisions for doubtful debts. Your cash in hand and cash at bank, the closing cash balance and the closing bank balance. Other receivables would have your prepaid expenses and outstanding income. Prepaid expenses, you've paid in advance services yet to be received, so it is a receivable. And outstanding income, you have provided services in advance, money is yet to be received. Any other receivables comes under any prepaid expenses or outstanding income comes under the heading other receivables. You will show it in the bracket, you will add the amount. Okay. After that, you will add all these current assets. You will add all these current assets. Take the total to the third column, which is your last column. Then you will add your non-current assets and the current assets. Then you will add the non-current assets and the current assets, which will give you your total assets. In the balance sheet, your total assets should always be equal to your total liabilities. This is the normal method to prepare the balance sheet. However, there is one more method to prepare prepare the balance sheet, that is the net assets method, that we will discuss later. Right now, we are at the normal method of preparing our balance sheet, where our non-current assets plus the current assets would give you the total assets. Let us revise it once more. Whatever is your non-current assets, you have three columns: cost, depreciation to date, net book value. Cost minus depreciation gives you the net book value. Like that, you will write the cost depreciations of all the assets. You will come at the net book value. You will total it, close the cost and depreciation to date column, and this will be the amount that you will use to sum up your total assets. In the current assets, you have your closing inventory, always found in adjustments. Next, you will have your trade receivable adjusted for new bad debts and new provisions. Next, cash in hand. After that, cash at bank. And last is your other receivables. In other receivables, you have your prepaid expenses and outstanding income. You will add all these current assets and take the total to the last column. Your non-current assets plus your current assets will give you your total assets. Now we will look at the liability section of our balance sheet. I hope the asset section is clear. Let's look at the liability section. The first part in the liability section, we start with owner's equity. Owner's equity starts with capital at the start. In this capital, you will have the profit for the year, which you will get it from the income statement. If you remember, we had already discussed that the profits for the year is very important because it is used again in the balance sheet. So here is the place where it is used. Because profits increases the owner's capital, we add the profits to the capital at the start. Suppose you have incurred any losses, so you would subtract the loss to the capital at start. Capital at start adjusts for the profits or losses during the year. You will get a figure. From that, you will deduct the drawings. Which drawings you will deduct? The one that is given in the trial balance plus the one that is given in the adjustments. The one that is given in the trial balance plus the one that is given in the adjustments. You will deduct the drawings and you would arrive at a figure which is nothing but your capital at the end. In the liabilities, okay, capital and liabilities section, you have three parts. First is the equity, second is the non-current liability, and third would be your current liability. The difference between a non-current liability and a current liability is that non-current liability lasts for more than 1 year. Current liability lasts with you for less than a year. For less than 1 year. Okay. Then the second thing is non-current liability. Anything, any loans taken for more than a year. Mostly you have debentures or bank loans that you can take for more than a year. If you have one, you directly write the amount in the outer column, the third column. If you have more than one, you would add the two in the second column and write the amount in the outer column. So we have non-current liability. And the third thing that we will add, first is capital. Second is the non-current liability. The third thing that you will add is the current liability, which will give you your total liabilities. And that all the times, if there are no errors, if there is no arithmetical errors, okay, all the time your total assets will be equal to your total liabilities. If your total assets is equal to your total liabilities, You can say with some certainty that your books of accounts are error free. Okay, so we've done with the capital. What happens in the capital? Capital at start, add the profits for the year. If you have losses, you will deduct it. Less the drawings, the one which is in the trial balance, add to the one which is there in the adjustments. You will come at capital at the end. Non-current liabilities, and last is your current liabilities. You only have three things that can maximum come in the current liabilities. One is your trade payables. Your trade payables are the people from whom you purchase goods on credit. Bank overdraft, the credit balance of the bank. And the next thing that you have is other payables. Other payables is the amounts that you still have to pay, yet to pay, and it is a mixture of two things. Outstanding expenses, where you still have to pay the amount, and pre-received income, where you still have to give the services. So they come under the heading other payables. You have more than one current liability, so you are adding in the second column. Add all the three, take it to the third column. Your owner's equity plus your non-current liability plus your current liability is going to give you your total liabilities. And if everything is error-free, at all point of time, your total assets will always be equal to total liabilities. That means we say that the balance sheet tallies. Total assets is made up of non-current assets plus current assets. Total liability is made up of capital or owner's equity plus non-current liability plus current liability. This is our normal approach to prepare our trial balance. Okay, where we show our total assets is always equal to our total liability. When I say that my total assets is always equal to my total liabilities, that means I say that my non-current assets plus current assets is always equal to the capital plus non-current liability minus current liability plus current liabilities. This is the normal method. However, if I have to show the balance sheet in the net asset method, that means the capital should be left alone. So what we will do, non-current assets plus current assets minus the current liability, mine will give you the capital plus non-current liability. So non-current assets plus the net non-current assets plus the net what? Net current assets. What is the net current assets? Current assets minus current liability will give you your capital, or you could say your net assets. Am I very clear? Okay, so when we have the net asset method, how do we show the balance sheet? When we have the net asset method, how do we show the balance sheet? We show the non-current assets. In the non-current assets, we will add the net current assets. When we make the net asset method, first we show the non-current assets. In the non-current assets, we will add the net assets. Now the net assets is made up of two things. Sorry, net current assets. Net current assets is made up of two things. The current assets minus the current liabilities. So this adjustment should be done in the second column, that is not the outermost, the one which is next to it. So net non-current assets, that is whatever cost minus depreciation to net book value. plus the net current assets. Net current assets is current assets minus current liability. Current assets minus current liability would give you the net current assets. Non-current assets plus net current assets will give you the net asset. And this is the net asset method of taking the balance sheet. This net assets is financed by, it is financed by capital and non-current liabilities. Okay, again, when you're preparing the net asset method, the balance sheet as the net asset method, how do you show it? Non-current assets plus current assets minus current liabilities will give you the net current assets. Non-current assets plus the net current assets would give you the net assets, which is financed by two things, capital plus non-current liabilities. Okay, so this should be equal to the total of this. This is the net asset method. I hope we are very clear with the balance sheet formats. Let's move ahead with the adjustments that we could come across when we are preparing the statements of financial position or the income statement. Okay, so the first adjustment that we come across is, so everyone, I've already told you how we prepare our final accounts. That means our financial statements. How do we prepare our income statement? How do we prepare our statement of financial position? Now we will go ahead to the adjustments. Now, what are adjustments? Adjustments are the things that we come to know after we prepare our trial balance. That means a trial balance is already prepared. The income statement is already prepared. The statement of financial position is already prepared. Now we come to know about things later on, some things which happens at the end of the year. And we have to adjust these things so that we arrive at our proper profit. So adjustments are the things that we come to know after the trial balance is prepared. And every adjustment will always have two effects. Two effects, that means it would have one debit effect and one credit effect. Debit effect, how do we come to know? If any debit item is there. When I'm talking about debit item, that means if you have any item of spades. Spades is sales return, purchases, assets, okay, drawings or expenses. So if you add to the items of spade, okay, if you add on a debit item, so the effect would be a debit effect. Or another way to give a debit effect is that you subtract from a credit, the effect would be a debit effect. Subtract from a credit, I mean to say that you subtract from an item which has a credit balance. So if you subtract from an item which has a credit balance, the effect that we would get is a debit effect. So I'm saying that every adjustment has two effects. First effect would be a debit effect. How do we give a debit effect? Either you add it to a debit balance, so you get a debit effect, or you subtract from a credit, you will get debit effect. Second effect that an adjustment would be having is a credit effect. How do you get credit effect? You add to a credit item, you get a credit effect, or you subtract from debit, you will get a credit effect. So when you add to a debit, it is a debit effect. When you subtract from a debit, you get a credit effect. When you subtract from credit, you would get a debit effect. And when you add to a credit, you would get a credit effect. Okay? So you should be very clear, when do you get credit effect, when do you get debit effect. Debit add debit, debit minus credit. Credit add credit, credit minus debit. So these things should be very clear to you. Normally, all our expenses have a debit balance and all our incomes have a credit balance. The first adjustment that we are going to study over here is our adjustment in respect of closing inventory. Okay, so we've already studied this, just try to recall. Adjustment in respect of closing inventory. Closing inventory are the goods that we do not sell. They don't give us gross profit. So we have to adjust it in the cost of sales. That is, we have to remove it from the cost of sales. Okay, cost of sales, it is an expense. If you remove it from the expense, okay, so if you remove it from the expense, that means you're removing it from the debit minus, you're giving it a credit effect. Second effect of the closing inventory is that this closing inventory belongs to you. So it will be shown in the statement of financial position on the asset sides under the heading current assets. So you're adding it in the debit. You're showing it in the debit. So debit add gives a debit effect. So every adjustment has two effects. One would be the debit effect, one would be the credit effect. So closing inventory has two effects. You remove it from the cost of sales and you show it in the current assets. Second adjustment that we need to know is about outstanding expense. What do you mean by outstanding expense? It is amount yet to be paid. If it is yet to be paid, that means it is our liability and we will pay it soon. So it is our current liability, and an outstanding expense is shown in current liability under the heading other payables. So it is a credit effect because liabilities have a credit balance. Next effect of outstanding expense is that you will add it to expense. Why? Because I have not yet paid this amount. It is amount yet to be paid. That means I have to pay. I have to pay and I have not yet paid. It is yet to be paid. That means because it is not yet paid, it is not included in my expense. But it is an expense for the year. So the effect of it is you have to include it in the expense. So you have to add it to the expense. Outstanding expense. Okay. Next, outstanding income. Can you think about it? It is amount yet to be received. Because it is still to be received, and anything yet to be received is your asset. I will receive it soon. So it is my current assets. I will receive it within a year. So outstanding income, which is amount yet to be received, is your current asset shown under the heading other receivable. This becomes a debit effect. Second effect, outstanding income. Income yet to be received. You will add it to the income. Why? Because I have to receive it. I have not yet received it. It is the amount that is yet to be received. Because I have not yet received it, it is not included in my income, but it is my income. So the effect of this is I have to include it because it is the income for the year. Incomes are credit. I have to include it. We are going to add it to the income. So I will add it to the income. So it becomes my credit effect. I hope I'm very clear. Next adjustment, prepaid expenses. Prepaid expenses means I have paid the money in advance. I have paid the money in advance. That means if I've paid the money in advance, I have to receive some services. Amount paid beforehand, service yet to be received, amounts yet to be received are my assets. Current assets It will be shown under the heading other receivables because I have paid the money in advance and services are yet to be received. This becomes the debit effect because prepaid expenses are shown in current assets, other receivables. What is to be received? The service is yet to be received. Second effect, can you all think? I have paid the money in advance, but it is not the expense for the year. So I will subtract it from the expenses. So I will subtract it from the expenses as it is not the expense for the year. So I will subtract it from expenses. Expense is debit, debit minus, it is the credit effect. I hope I'm very clear. Next adjustment, pre-received income, amounts received in advance. Service has to be provided. It is still to be provided. Service is still to be provided. So the first effect is the pre-received income would come in current liability under the heading other payables. Because income is received in advance, service is yet to be given. Current liability, other payables. Effect number 2, I have received this money in advance. It is not the income for the year. It is the income for the next year or next to next year. So the next effect is I would deduct it from the income as it is not the income for the year. Next adjustment, drawings. That is goods that I withdraw for my own use. I have taken the goods from the business for my own use. The goods that I purchased, I have taken for my own use. So a trader may take some items that he purchased to resell from the business for personal use. So the effects of good for own use is that I will deduct it from a purchase at the cost price. It is shown as a deduction from the purchases. Remember, goods for own use is shown as a deduction from purchase, only those goods that I have not yet adjusted. So the thing, it should be shown in the adjustment. Then you will deduct it from the purchase at cost price. Second effect is that whatever drawings that I'm showing, I will add it to the drawings and I will reduce the capital. So I have capital, add profit, less drawings. So this is the trader's drawings. So whatever is the trader's drawings, I will show these goods that I've taken from own use as an addition to the trader's drawing. And I will reduce the capital by that amount. The journal entry for goods for own use. Can you give me the journal entry for goods for own use? That is the journal entry for drawings. Drawings is always debited. So drawings will be debited. And because I have taken the goods that I purchased for own use, so I will remove from purchases. So purchases credit. The journal entry for drawings would be drawings debit, purchases credit. Okay. Next adjustment that I would be studying is depreciation on assets. Depreciation on asset is an expense for the business, so we will write it as an expense. Okay, we will write it as an expense. Second is we always have costs, depreciation to date, and net book value. 3 columns on the asset side of our balance sheet. So whatever is the depreciation to date, we will add the depreciation of the year in the old depreciation. So second effect of the depreciation on the assets would be, we will add it in the depreciation to date. We will add it in the depreciation to date. Please note it down. Next adjustment. Next adjustment is loan interest. That means you've taken a loan and you have to pay interest. You have taken a loan and you have to pay interest. If you have to pay interest, that means it is your expense. So first effect of loan interest is write it as an expense. Okay. The next effect of loan interest is in case you not get paid it. So you have to pay it. So it will be shown as a current liability under the heading other payables. Okay. Loan interest is an expense for you. You have to write it as an expense. See, for example, your loan is for 1 lakh and loan interest is 10%. So your loan interest would be 10,000. And 10,000 is your loan interest. You have to write it as an expense. But your trial balance gives you loan interest of 9,000 already. So what you do is that this loan interest, you write it as an expense 9,000, which is already there in the trial balance. And another 1,000, you will add it and write it as an expense because this is outstanding. You actually have to pay 10%, it is coming up to 10,000. Trial balance is only giving you 9,000. So you will add the additional interest that you still have to pay and you will make the loan interest up to 10,000. And in your current liability, you will record only 1,000. That is the amount that you've not yet paid. If the trial balance is no loan interest given, then you will record full 10,000 as an expense. If there is no loan interest given in your trial balance, nothing given. If nothing is given in your trial balance, then you will record full 10,000 as loan interest payable. You will write it as an expense. What you will write as an expense? Loan interest payable 10,000 and the rest as a current liability 10,000. That means the interest that you've not yet paid. Please remember that the loan amount, loan of 1 lakh, will be shown as a non-current liability if the due date is more than a year. Okay, this is very important. Only the interest is your expense, and the interest, if you've not paid, becomes a part of your current liability. Okay. Now the last adjustment that we have, that would be our ninth adjustment. It is provision for doubtful debts. What do you mean by provision for doubtful debts? Provision for doubtful debts is that you have a doubt that your debts is your debtors is your trade receivables. You have doubt that your trade receivables will not pay you, and so you keep aside money. You keep aside money from your profits. You keep aside money from the profits because you have a doubt that your debtors will not pay you money, because you see that the debtors are likely to run away, and they may not be all your debtors, but a certain percentage of your debtors. So when you have a doubt that your debtors don't pay you money, you keep aside some money. You keep aside some money out of the profits. And when you keep aside some money out of the profits because of your these doubts, it is called provision for doubtful debts. So whenever you have provision for doubtful debts, or whenever you have a doubt that your debtors are not going to pay you, what you do is that you subtract this amount from the debtors. Debtors is your assets. So this is debit minus, you give a credit effect. How about the debit effect? How about the debit effect? What do is that you keep this money aside from profits. That means you show it as an expense. You show it as an expense and you do not use these profits, or you could say profits minus, or you can say credit minus, and if you minus from the credit, it is a debit effect. So when you have a provision for doubtful debts, the two effects of it is that you remove it from debtors and show it as an expense, or in the other word, you keep aside the profits. Now, these provision for doubtful debts could appear at two places. What are the two places where it could appear? First thing where it could appear is in your trial balance. The provision for doubtful debts that appears in your trial balance, we call it as an old provision. When we say old provision, means and one part of the adjustment is already done, it is already been subtracted from debtors, the provision for doubtful debts. You just have to do the second part. Okay, so provision for doubtful debts, when it appears in your trial balance, they are your old provisions which you've already adjusted. So what do? We ignore it. Supposingly, we have an example where our old provisions is $4,000. And the old provision, I meant to say that these provisions appear in your trial balance. So this old provision which appears in the trial balance, you ignore it for the time being because it has been already been adjusted. Provision for doubtful debts, if they give you in the adjustment that you think that 1% of your debtors will not pay you, that means now you have to do two adjustments for it. You think that your debtors will not pay you, so you subtract from debtors. And another thing, you show it as an expense. Now, when they say that you provide for 1% of provision for doubtful debts, that means 1% of what will you provide? So 1% of debtors. So your debtors will be given to you in the trial balance. The percentage, 1% or 5% will be given to you in the adjustment. So you create a provision and you created a provision here of 5,000. Now look at the entire scenario which is in front of you. Your old provision which was there in the trial balance was 4,000. The new provision as per adjustment was 5,000. I told you that the old provision you ignore for the time being. How will you adjust this new provision for doubtful debts? The first thing that you do is that you will subtract this from debtors. The new provision for doubtful debts will be subtracted from debtors. And the second effect of this is you have to keep aside from the profit. You have to keep 5,000 aside from profit. But 4,000 was already there before. So how much will you keep aside from the profit? You will keep additional 1,000 aside from the profit, 4,000 which was already there before, plus one more 1,000 of the new addition to the provision for doubtful debts. In all, only 5,000 will be kept aside. That is why we say that the old provision, you ignore it for the time being. Okay, whenever you create a new provision, you will compare. You will compare. If your new provisions, okay, I'm telling you again, whenever you create a new provision, you will compare. You will compare it with your older provision. If your new provision is more, that means you think that you have to keep aside more money. If your new provision is more, which means you think that you have to keep aside more money. Means you have to increase your provisions. And if you're increasing your provisions, that means it is a loss, which is an estimated loss for you, only the difference. Okay, so this, if you increase your provision, it is a loss for you. Only the difference here, the old provision was 4,000, new provision is 5,000. You have increased your provision for doubtful debts by 1,000. So the loss for you is only 1,000, because 4,000 you have already kept aside. This is the estimated loss. This is the estimated loss. Please do not confuse yourself, because you are just feeling that your debtors, you just have a doubt on your debtors that your debtors will not pay you. But supposingly, if your old provisions is 4,000 and your new provision is just 500, that means you are decreasing your provision. So initially you had a doubt that you will have more loss. So you kept aside more 1,000. But now you have a doubt that your loss will not be 4,000. Your loss will decrease. So if I say my loss will decrease, that means now 3,500 I'm in a gaining position. So the difference between the old provision and the new provision is 3,500. That is a gain for you. Now you think you are not going to get so much of loss. So this will be shown as income, not expense. So in provision for doubtful debts, if you increase the provision, it is a loss for you and it will be shown on the debit. That means it will be shown as an expense. However, if you decrease the provision, you feel that your debtors are good, they are not going to give you so much of loss. So in case you decrease the provision, it is a gain for you. So you're going to add back the amount that you had kept aside. So profit plus, but you will not add it in profit. You will show it in income. Show it in income. And you will write decrease in the provision. However, whatever new provision you create, that will be subtracted from debtors. Okay? Am I very clear? So, new provision in the current assets from the trade receivables, you will subtract the new provisions. In the current asset from the trade receivables, you will subtract the new provision, whatever amount. And second effect, you will always compare the old with new. If you are increasing the provision, that means it is a bad thing. You will show as an expense only the difference. And if you're decreasing the provision, that means it is a good thing. You will show as a income, only the difference. Okay? So increasing or decreasing will show you whether you have to show it as an income or whether you have to show it as an expense. When we do the sum, you will have more clarity on this. Let's move ahead. Now this is an A-level sums. Okay, this is an A-level sum. October, November 20, 9706 is the paper code and paper 21. So when you all watch the next video, we're directly going to start with the sums of A levels. And those who are in IGCSE, they will have sums related to IGCSE. The paper codes, you can find it in the description. So if you are doing the IGCSE code, please solve the IGCSE papers. And if you're doing the A levels, solve the A level papers. Okay. Thank you very much. Please like, comment, and share. And in case if you want the worksheet, you can please leave a comment down with your email ID. Thank you so much.